Hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. Now, if you have ever had an addiction or a very strong habit or a compulsion to use certain substances, that could be recreational drugs, or it could even be certain other things that link to alcohol, perhaps, or cigarettes or something else, then you'll get some benefit from this session, particularly if you're still using or abusing that particular substance. So in this session, I use lots of metaphors to highlight what it can feel like for a user of a substance that could keep them trapped in some way. And it uses this idea that they're on a treadmill, and this treadmill could go either faster or slower. And it's because they have to keep doing certain things just to stay exactly where they are. Now, the client that I was working with was a cocaine user, but it applies to other things as well. Now, for them, they were spending around about £100 a day. That's the equivalent of about $130 a day. And that means that a lot of what they were earning just had to kind of fund their habit, irrespective of other things like rent and other expenses. So that's part of the treadmill, but of course it requires a certain amount of time investment. It requires a certain amount of thinking about the thing. And that's all this treadmill. And behind the treadmill is a pit. And the pit represents the undesirable consequences of continue to use. That could be financial consequences, it could be emotional consequences, it could be health consequences. Obviously, certain drugs might be more at risk of severe health consequences than others. Things like alcohol and cigarettes, can have long-term consequences, but less short-term consequences, and other drugs might have more intense consequences. I've worked with a few people that were crack cocaine users, quite often had missing teeth or missing fingernails. That can happen as a direct result of a habit. Sometimes it's linked to certain skin, or with cocaine, if it's snorted, around the septum or upper palate. So it can have health consequences that are either visible or unknown. It could lead to other health consequences. This is all represented by the pit. Many people that use have difficult relationships with either their partner or family members. So it could be that it leads to something where a relationship ends, or the way that someone's perceived maybe by a child could change. That's all in the pit. Homelessness could be in there. The client I was working with said there were 2 or 3 occasions that, were it not for a good friend or family member, they would have been homeless, because it was an expensive habit that meant that they were always on the brink. So the treadmill also represents the financial pressure and the feeling of just having to kind of keep doing what you're doing just to kind of keep your head above water. So the pit represents undesirable consequences. The treadmill is the effort and energy and cost required just to maintain the habit. And then there's this idea of kind of like almost like a child's slide, one of those flumes, water slides above. So it represents a tunnel. But the reason why I'm using this is to highlight that it's very easy to slide down the tunnel or the slide, but very difficult to climb up it. And that's how lots of substance habits are like. It can feel like it's a real effort to break, months or years of use. But they know that they're 2 minutes away from sliding all the way back down, back on the treadmill. So it's a good metaphor from that perspective. And then there's a particular person that represents someone that they really loved, calling to their desirable future, which is beyond the tunnel. Now, the reason the length of this tunnel is 5 days is that this particular client said that on several occasions where they were a few months free of using cocaine, it took about 5 days for their body to adapt, and it was pretty ropey during that 5 days. So for them, the tunnel is 5 days. For someone else, it might be shorter or it might be longer, depending on what it is. But 5 days felt like a good number for this particular client. And then there's various suggestions about what it would mean for them to be on the treadmill, look down into the pit, or climb the tunnel. The threshold, by the way, of leaving the treadmill to the tunnel is certain decisions and boundaries, things like deleting dealers' numbers and throwing away any substances that they have or any paraphernalia, and setting boundaries with certain people they might meet. That's quite important because this tends to be the banana skins that get people relapsing into the previous habit. So better to kind of mitigate that in advance. This session was created for an individual. Some of the references might not make sense to you, but were perfect for the client. But if you do like the idea of working with me, or maybe you have a habit that you just know that you've been on this treadmill for a while and you don't want to end up in the pit, or even worse, you don't want to end up just forever on this treadmill, then there will be a link in the description where you can either do a hypnosis suitability test, so you can figure out if you'd be a good candidate for hypnotherapy, or you can book a free consultation call and we can have a chat to see if I'm the right hypnotherapist for you. For now, though, this session might actually be the kind of metaphor that really kind of connects and resonates with you. So find a quiet, comfortable place, the kind of place where you're not going to be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in a feeling of calm relaxation. And as you exhale, feel a wonderful sense of release, as if tension, stress, or worries are leaving your body. Breathing in that relaxation and feeling your eyelids getting heavier and heavier as you continue to exhale any tension. Breathing in relaxation and releasing as each breath takes you deeper than the last. And maybe you notice that the deeper you breathe, the more resourceful you feel. And the longer you exhale, the more you're letting go of sensations, stresses and worries, just leaving your body in that outward breath. That's it. Because the deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you become. And the more relaxed you become, the deeper you breathe. A wonderful cycle of ever-increasing feelings of relaxation. And as your body relaxes, your imagination awakens. And I want you to imagine a strange combination of things. I want you to imagine a treadmill. And you can see the treadmill whirring. It's the kind of treadmill you would see in a gym. A dashboard, electric powered, you set the speed, and it just continues to spin round. But behind the treadmill, I want you to see a dark, deep pit. And you already get the connotation that if someone's on the treadmill and can't maintain the pace, then they would go backwards into the pit. But I want you to see something else. Above the treadmill is one of those child water slides. You know the ones. Plastic, circular. The kind of flumes that you see in water parks. Now, a slide like that is very easy to slide down, but very difficult to climb up. Not impossible, but difficult. So I want you to imagine a brightly coloured, cylindrical slide above the treadmill, leading like a tunnel somewhere else. And you don't know where that tunnel leads yet. All you know is that it's a way of escaping the treadmill and the pit. And I want you to imagine there is a voice that you can hear that comes down the tunnel. A voice of someone that you deeply love and that loves you. And you know that voice doesn't want you to be on the treadmill or end up in the pit. And they are calling you to climb up the tunnel. You don't know exactly what's at the end of the tunnel yet, but you do know it takes roughly 3, 4, or 5 days. That even if you start climbing up the tunnel, that's what it would take to get to the other side. And I want you to consider that the other side is just a happier, healthier, more fulfilling future with less stress, less worries, and less pressure. Because that's the key thing that the treadmill represents. Relentless pressure. It keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And if something was to happen, like a trip, which often happens in life, it's very possible that you end up in the pit. And I want you to think about the pit first. The pit is an undesirable outcome. Maybe it's long-term sickness. Maybe it's homelessness. Maybe the pit represents losing a relationship with someone you care deeply for. Or maybe the relationship exists, but something is lost, like love or respect. Maybe the pit represents a waste of an opportunity, of not living the life that you could have done. For many people, that's their biggest regret. Not living a life that was possible for them. And I want you to imagine gazing down into the pit and getting an idea of what the pit represents for you. Maybe it is financial destitution or poverty. Maybe it is sickness. Some people get sick and they have something that means that it becomes almost impossible to then work after that point. Perhaps a stroke or a fall, some kind of scare. And all I want you to do is to consider that the longer anyone spends on the treadmill, the more likely they are to end up in the pit. And because you get to decide what the pit is, I want you to make the pit as undesirable as it possibly could be. I want you to think of a combination of factors that make the pit uniquely undesirable for you. Maybe it's poor health, poverty, homelessness, unemployability, or something else. But when you know for sure what the pit now means for you, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And let's imagine that certain things can speed up the treadmill. The more you use, the faster the treadmill becomes and the steeper the gradient. I want you to get a sense that losing an income speeds up the treadmill. But I also want you to think that certain things can help you. Finding a good, well-paying job might slow down the treadmill. Consuming less means you're still on the treadmill, it's just going slower, making it more manageable, not desirable, but manageable. And once you've figured out what speeds up or slows down the treadmill, then it's time to get on the treadmill. And once you're on the treadmill, and let's define the treadmill as using your substance. There is only two ways off the treadmill: to climb up the tube and escape the tunnel, or to fall into the pit. But falling into the pit means it's difficult to escape. But climbing up the tunnel means you're traveling towards a more desirable future. It's easy to fall into the pit. You just have to do nothing at all. And the treadmill will take you into the pit. Whereas escaping through that cylindrical tunnel requires effort, focus, and dedication. But if the future is desirable enough, you will unlock the resources needed to do it. I want you to get a sense that you're on the treadmill, and you've been on the treadmill for a while. Maybe it's been months on the treadmill, and maybe the treadmill is going faster now than it has been in the past. And I want you to ask yourself a question. How much longer am I willing to be on this treadmill? Now that may be minutes. You might be minutes away from a decision to leave the treadmill. And the moment you leave, you will already feel better because you're already in the escape tunnel. Or it might be that you're setting the intention to leave the tunnel, but will actually do what's necessary to leave the treadmill into the tunnel soon. But don't forget, tomorrow never comes. And if not now, then when? And why then instead of now? The ancient Chinese have a saying: the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the next best time is now. And maybe it would have been better to escape this treadmill months or even years ago. But the next best time is now. And let's just say Something needs to happen to leave the treadmill into the tunnel. We can call this actions and boundaries. The action is to throw away, wash away, discard any remaining of the substance you wish to be free of. Consider this a therapeutic symbol, washing away that which no longer serves you. And let's just say, throwing away any paraphernalia, items, perhaps even clothes or certain accessories used, is also part of this symbolic ritual. Because this is a ritual, a ritualistic death of an old identity that no longer serves you. And maybe it's the identity of a user. But it could also be the identity of an abuser. Because if someone else was taking the level of money that you spend from you, you would consider this financial abuse. If another person was causing the health damage to you, you would consider it poisoning or assault or physical abuse. If someone was able to make you feel that dependent, that is a form of coercion, of bullying, also abuse. So the very moment that you wash away, throw away, or discard anything connected to that identity, you are also throwing away that identity. And the opposite of an abuser is a protector, a guardian. And maybe now is the time to throw away the part of you that is an abuser and step into the part of you that is a protector, a guardian, a protector of you and a protector of all that you love. And when you feel ready to take the next step, it would also be to create boundaries, blocking, removing, deleting certain numbers and contacts, or setting a boundary of certain people you're not willing to see, or places you're not willing to go. Consider this an access code to that tunnel, and only when you've done all of those, discarded all that no longer serves you, and set the right boundaries, and stepped into that identity of being a protector, a provider, then it's possible that the tunnel gets low enough so you can leave the treadmill and start the ascent. The moment you make this decision feels like a win. Knowing that the next few days won't be easy. It's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be worthwhile. And I want you to hear the voice of that person calling you toward the end. They want you to be there. They want you to be healthy and happy. They want you to be the version of you where you are at your best and getting better. And I want you to imagine that perhaps the first 2 days might be the steepest. But you know that if you can just get through those 2 days, then the tunnel gets less steep and easier to climb. I want you to get a sense that you are 5 days or less from escaping the tunnel. And you don't have to do too much in the tunnel. It's what you don't do that keeps you climbing. What you can do is think of the future that you desire. What you can do is think of interesting things to do, stop you getting bored. You might even do things that make you feel healthy. Eat good food, move your body, go for a walk. But I want you to get the sense that you've done this before and you can do it again. With the right boundaries, the right identity, and a feeling that it's worth it to escape this tunnel towards that future. You keep making progress. So keep making progress. Imagine what it would be like for day 1, and you get through it. And that first night, without using it all, you feel like a champion, like you've won round 1 of an important battle. And that galvanizes your energy for day 2. And you plan what you're going to do in advance to keep your mind focused and your eye on the prize, that compelling vision of your future. And then imagine day 2 turns to day 3 and it feels easier, that the hardest part is behind you. Imagine being tempted, having thoughts that come up, and feeling that even though you're feeling a certain way or thinking a certain way, nothing is going to get you back down to that treadmill. So you persist. You keep climbing, keep moving forward. But you notice, as time goes on, the voice at the other end of the tunnel gets clearer and louder. And imagine that voice telling you all the wonderful things in your future. You're healthier, you're happier. You have more money to spend on what you really want, rather than paying for your own abuse. I want you to get a sense that the more you hear what that future is going to be like, the more your resolve increases. Day 4, and you might experience some physical sensations in your body. Some people might call it cravings or withdrawals, but you consider it something else. Evidence that your body is adapting, changing, releasing the need to go backwards. And then day 5, you know that once you get through day 5, it's almost like the gravitational pull of this habit is losing its grip, and you can continue forwards much easier, living life on your terms. So imagine that now, the end of day 5, and you wake up on day 6, 5 days free of this substance. I want you to feel like a free man being released from prison. Feel a wonderful sense that you are now out of the tunnel into a bright future. And I want you to imagine seeing everything possible in your future once you've escaped the tunnel. See your health improving. See that your finances have improved. See that you can be an even better provider and carer and guardian because your focus isn't now blurred from a biological habit. I want you to get a sense that this future feels appealing. And sometimes when a major change takes place, other changes follow, not because they have to, but what if you step into an identity of being a healthy, healed protector? There would be other things that a healthy, healed protector also don't do. And then your health can get even better. So just imagine all of the possibilities. I want you to get a sense that this is just 5 days away. And some things would need to be worked on. But it's the possibility that exists here. I want you to imagine how good it would feel to have been a year in this future. A year of not using and a year of not abusing. And imagine there's a full-length mirror. See how much healthier, happier, resourceful you look. And if you can imagine seeing that future, let me know by nodding your head. You deserve this future. And you are simply one decision and a few actions away from starting your journey from the treadmill to the tunnel. Not because you have to, but because you desire not to be in that relenting pressure of always having to move forward, or you risk falling into the pit. I want you to get a sense that you have planted a seed of an idea in your subconscious mind, and you get to decide when the journey from the treadmill to the tunnel begins. But for now, let's leave this place, knowing that there is a desirable future just 5 days away. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Connect and calibrate into the here and the now as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button or follow button to make sure that you're automatically notified of any future episodes that I release. Also, by doing that, it lets the algorithm know that you like this show, and that will put it in front of even more people that might not know that this show exists. So that would be helpful for me. And if you like the stuff that I do, take a moment just to have a look in the show notes or the description, because there's lots of free things that I have to offer, including free hypnosis downloads without the intro or the outro like I'm doing now. So thank you again for joining me on today's episode, and I'll see you again soon for the next one.